The night shift always seemed like the perfect gig. It was quiet, the hours dragged on, and you were mostly left alone. That was the appeal for me when I applied to work as a night security guard at Halcyon Tower, a sleek, corporate high-rise in the heart of downtown. They didn't ask for much. Show up at 10 p.m., patrol the building every couple of hours, and make sure nothing suspicious happened until 6 a.m. Easy money for someone like me who didn't mind solitude. The job had its quirks, sure. The elevators groaned like dying animals after midnight. The motion sensors in the hallways flickered erratically, and sometimes I'd catch glimpses of my reflection in the glass walls and think it was someone else. But I figured it was all part of the deal. Buildings like this always had their quirks, especially at night when the city outside was a ghost town. That Thursday night started like any other. I clocked in at 9:57 p.m., greeted Joel, the day shift guard, and went through the handoff routine. Joel looked tired as usual, yawning mid-sentence as he rattled off the usual updates. "Nothing much tonight," he said, handing me the keys and the clipboard. "Cleaning crew left around 8, and the third-floor lights are acting up again. Oh, and..." He hesitated, scratching the back of his neck. "If you hear anything weird on the 5th floor, don't worry about it. Probably just pipes or something." I raised an eyebrow. "Pipes? Since when do pipes make noises on the 5th floor?" Joel shrugged. "Could be rats. Maintenance said they'd check it out, but you know how they are. Anyway, good luck, man." With that, he was out the door, leaving me alone in the cavernous lobby. The first couple of hours passed uneventfully. I did my initial rounds, walking the length of each floor, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The usual hum of the building accompanied me. The faint whir of the HVAC system, the occasional creak of the structure settling, and the distant murmur of traffic below. It was oddly comforting. At around 1 a.m., I decided to take my second round. The 5th floor lingered in my mind, thanks to Joel's comment. I didn't believe in ghosts or any of that nonsense, but there was something unsettling about his tone. He wasn't the type to joke around, especially not about things like this. The elevator dinged softly as it opened to the 5th floor. I stepped out into the hallway, my flashlight sweeping across the plush carpet and the minimalist artwork lining the walls. Everything seemed normal. I walked slowly, listening for anything out of the ordinary. That's when I heard it. A faint scraping sound, like metal dragging against metal. I froze, my grip tightening on the flashlight. The sound came from one of the offices at the far end of the hallway. My heart thudded in my chest as I approached, each step feeling heavier than the last. The door to the office was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling into the hallway. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing faintly. No response. Pushing the door open with my foot, I shone the flashlight inside. The office was empty, just rows of desks and computers sitting in silence. The sound had stopped. I took a few cautious steps inside, my shoes muffled by the carpet. Nothing seemed out of place, but the air felt heavier here, like the room itself was holding its breath. I did a quick sweep and found nothing. Relieved, I stepped back into the hallway and closed the door behind me. Maybe Joel was right about the pipes after all. The rest of the floor was quiet, and I finished my rounds without incident. Back in the lobby, I settled into my chair and pulled out my phone, trying to shake off the unease from earlier. An hour passed, then 2. The building was silent, and I started to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. At 3:30 a.m., I decided to do one final patrol before the end of my shift. As I stepped into the elevator, I hesitated. My finger hovered over the button for the 5th floor. Something inside me said to skip it, but curiosity got the better of me. The elevator doors opened to a pitch-black hallway. The motion sensors usually activated the lights, but tonight they stayed off. I stepped out, the darkness swallowing me whole. My flashlight flickered as I walked, the beam sputtering unpredictably. I cursed under my breath and smacked it against my palm. That's when I heard it again. The scraping sound. Louder this time, more deliberate. It wasn't coming from the office. It was in the hallway itself, just ahead of me. My heart raced as I inched forward, my flashlight flickering weakly. Is someone there? I called out, my voice shaking. The scraping stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a figure emerged from the shadows. He was tall, dressed in a dark hoodie and jeans, his face obscured by the hood. In his hand, he held a crowbar, the metal glinting faintly in the dim light. "Hey!" I shouted, trying to sound authoritative. "What are you doing here? This is private property." The man didn't respond. Instead, he started walking toward me, slow and deliberate. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. "I'll call the police," I said, fumbling for the radio on my belt. The man stopped, tilting his head slightly as if considering my words. Then, without warning, he lunged at me. I barely had time to react, throwing myself to the side as the crowbar swung through the air where my head had been a moment earlier. Adrenaline surged through me as I scrambled to my feet and ran down the hallway. I could hear his footsteps pounding behind me, growing louder with each second. My flashlight slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor, but I didn't dare stop to pick it up. I burst into the stairwell, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the lock, twisting it into place. The footsteps stopped on the other side. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a loud bang as the man slammed the crowbar against the door. I bolted down the stairs, taking them two at a time. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like jelly, but I didn't stop until I reached the lobby. I grabbed the phone at the security desk and dialed 911. My fingers shaking so badly I almost dropped the receiver. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline. "911, what's your emergency?" There's someone in the building," I stammered. "He's got a weapon. He tried to attack me." "Stay on the line," she said. "Officers are on their way. Are you in a safe location?" I glanced around the lobby, the glass walls offering little protection. "I think so," I said, though I didn't feel safe at all. The banging in the stairwell stopped. The silence was almost worse. I strained my ears, listening for any sign of movement. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. He was standing just outside the glass doors, staring at me. His hood was down now, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into me. "He's outside," I whispered into the phone. "He's watching me." The operator's voice remained steady. "Stay where you are. The police are only a few minutes away." The man lifted the crowbar and tapped it against the glass, a slow, deliberate rhythm that sent chills down my spine. Then, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the street outside. The police arrived shortly after. They searched the building and the surrounding area but found no sign of him. The officers assured me they'd patrol the area and suggested I take the rest of the night off. I didn't argue. The next day, I handed in my resignation. Whatever that man wanted, I wasn't going to stick around to find out. Weeks later, I learned from the news that a man matching his description had been caught breaking into another office building downtown. He'd been armed and dangerous, responsible for a string of violent burglaries in the area. I'd gotten lucky that night, but the memory of his hollow eyes and the sound of the crowbar scraping against the floor still haunts me. Some nights, when the world is quiet, I think I can still hear it. It was supposed to be a regular night shift, just another round of long hours, a cold cup of coffee, and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. The company I worked for had a small customer service call center. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. I wasn't expecting anything to go wrong, but I should have known better. The night shift has a way of bringing out the worst in people. My name is Alex, and I've been with the company for 6 months now. The building was old, situated in an industrial area on the outskirts of town. The kind of place where you could see the stars at night because there was no other light around. I had a small office at the back of the building, far from the reception area, which only made the isolation more intense. It had been a quiet evening until about 2 a.m. That's when the call came through. "Hello," I answered, thinking it was just another customer. The voice on the other end was deep, but the tone was calm, almost too calm. It sent a strange shiver down my spine. "I need your help," he said. "Can you help me?" I frowned, glancing at the call Idaho. The number didn't look familiar. "Sorry, sir, but I'm not sure I can help with whatever issue you're facing. You've got the wrong number," I said, trying to end the conversation. But the man wasn't done. No, I need your help," he repeated, and this time his voice sounded closer, like he was in the room with me. I froze. I wasn't alone in the office. The whole floor had been empty for hours, with the last person having left before midnight. "I'm here," he said, his voice lowering to a whisper. My heartbeat quickened. I scanned the room in a panic. The office door was locked. The blinds were closed. No one could have gotten in without me noticing, but the unease I felt was undeniable. I got up from my desk, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Who is this? What do you want?" I demanded, stepping toward the door. There was a long pause before the man spoke again. "I'm just outside," he said with chilling finality. The call dropped. I stood there for a moment, my mind racing. My first instinct was to call the police, but there was no sign of forced entry, no reason to believe that anyone had gotten into the building. I grabbed my phone, dialing the local authorities, but before I could even hit send, the building's old security alarm went off, a loud, shrill sound that echoed through the empty halls. Panic surged through me. The security guard had left hours ago. There was no one else on duty. I walked cautiously to the hallway, peeking around the corner toward the main entrance. The lights flickered briefly, then dimmed again. I could hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the stairwell. I turned back to my office, grabbed the small metal baseball bat I kept hidden behind the desk, and crept back into the hallway. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was it some sort of prank? Was someone trying to mess with me? I stepped cautiously toward the stairs, my pulse racing. The footsteps continued, the sound getting louder, closer. Then, without warning, I heard a voice call from behind me. "You didn't think you could hide forever, did you?" I spun around, swinging the bat, but there was no one there, just the eerie silence of the empty building. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, heart pounding. It was a message from an unknown number. "You're not alone." My breath caught in my throat as I turned toward the back exit. The door was ajar. How had it opened? Had the man been waiting there, watching me? I backed up slowly, looking for a place to hide, my thoughts in disarray. As I reached the elevator doors, I heard a sharp knock from behind me. The man was close, too close. It was my first night working the graveyard shift at the factory, and something about the place felt off from the start. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the hollow echo of machines that no longer hummed with purpose, or the way the fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, eerie shadows across the cavernous space. But I didn't have much choice. I needed the job, and the pay was good. My name's Adam. I'm 25, struggling to make ends meet, and I've never been the kind of person to shy away from a little discomfort. After a few weeks of unemployment, the offer to work the night shift at Rawlinson Industries seemed like a godsend. I'd heard rumors about the place, whispers about past accidents, unexplained events, and the occasional worker who never came back. But those were just rumors, right? My boss assured me there was nothing to worry about. "Just keep your head down, follow the routine, and you'll be fine," he said, his tone too dismissive to be comforting. I was assigned to the assembly line, a grim, industrial stretch of the building where machines clicked and whirred, seemingly alive with purpose. The smell of oil and rust lingered in the air, and the sound of the heavy machinery was constant, a monotonous hum that made the factory feel like a living, breathing thing. The first few hours were uneventful. I did what I was told, loaded parts into the machines, and checked the conveyor belts for any glitches. The factory was quiet except for the sounds of the machinery, which somehow felt louder in the solitude of the night. Around 2 a.m., I noticed something strange. One of the machines near the far end of the line, an old press began to malfunction. It started sputtering, its movements jerky and uneven. I shrugged it off at first, thinking it was just a glitch in the system, but then I noticed something else. There was a faint, high-pitched sound, almost like a voice, coming from the machine. It was barely audible at first, like someone whispering in the distance, but it grew louder, clearer until I could make out words. "Help! Please! Help me!" I froze. My stomach twisted, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. It had to be a trick, just a mechanical noise, a weird quirk of the old press. I wasn't sure what to do. Was I imagining things? The whisper came again, this time louder, more desperate. "Help! Help me, Adam." I swallowed hard. How did the machine know my name? I stood there, paralyzed, my mind racing. The factory had a reputation for strange things happening. People vanishing, equipment malfunctioning in bizarre ways. But I had never heard anything like this. I had no idea what to do. Should I report it? I didn't want to seem crazy. I took a step closer to the machine, my heart pounding in my chest. The whisper stopped abruptly, and I felt a cold gust of air rush past me. My skin prickled, and my breath caught in my throat. I turned around, but the factory was as silent as ever. The hum of the machinery seemed to fade into the background, and I felt a heavy weight settle over me. I walked back to my station, trying to shake off the unease, but it wasn't easy. Every sound, every flicker of the lights, seemed amplified in the silence of the night. I kept telling myself it was just my nerves, that I was overthinking things. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. As the hours dragged on, the unease grew. I kept hearing the whispers from the press, always calling my name, always asking for help. I couldn't focus on my work. Every time I looked away from the machine, I could feel its presence, as if it was watching me, waiting for something. But there was no one else in the factory. It was just me. Around 4 a.m., the whispers stopped. The silence was deafening. For a moment, I thought maybe I had imagined it all. Maybe the stress was getting to me, but then I heard it. A loud bang from the far end of the factory. It was followed by a series of sharp, scraping sounds, like metal dragging against metal. I grabbed the flashlight from my desk and started walking toward the noise, my hands shaking. As I got closer to the old press, the air grew colder, and the smell of oil and rust seemed stronger. The machine was still, its gears unmoving. But there, on the floor beside it, was something I couldn't explain. A pair of boots. They were old, worn, and covered in grime. I knelt down, my heart racing, and reached for them. As I touched the boots, I felt a sudden jolt of electricity run through my body. I pulled my hand back, and the machine suddenly roared to life. The press began to grind, its gears turning with a deafening screech. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. Then, a voice, clear and unmistakable, filled the air. "Help! Please, help me, Adam." I backed away, my mind spinning. The voice was coming from the machine itself, the same machine that had been malfunctioning earlier. I had to get out of there. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. I felt rooted to the spot, my body refusing to cooperate. Suddenly, the machine's press arm shot forward, slamming down with incredible force. The sound was deafening, and I flinched, covering my ears. But when I opened my eyes, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The press had crushed something beneath it, a body. The figure was mangled, unrecognizable, but there was no mistaking the clothes. They were the same pair of boots I had just touched. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw the man's face, a face that I recognized. It was my predecessor, the man who had worked this shift before me, the one who had gone missing a few weeks ago without a trace. His eyes were wide open, staring at me, filled with a mixture of fear and pain. His mouth moved, but the words were drowned out by the grinding of the press. I could still hear the whispers in my mind, urging me to help him, but I knew it was too late. I ran as fast as I could, the sounds of the factory chasing me, the whispers following me, calling my name. But no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't escape. The factory had me now. It had claimed me just as it had claimed so many others. By the time morning rolled around, the police found my body slumped in front of the press. They didn't know what happened. They didn't know that the factory had a secret, a dark secret that consumed anyone who worked the night shift. It wasn't the machines that were haunted. It was the factory itself, an old, cursed place that fed on the lives of its workers. And now it had me. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the content. As a college student, I work hard to create these videos, and I edit everything on my mobile phone. I'm hoping to upgrade to a laptop to improve the quality of my videos, but I don't want to ask for money directly. This Christmas, if you enjoy what I do, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean the world to me. Your support helps me so much as I continue working toward my goals. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. May this festive season bring you joy and warmth. Thanks again for your support, and stay tuned for more.